I just realized that's not my job. I just realized that's not my job. That's the topic of today's video. And what I'm referring to is, I'm thinking about from the standpoint of how many times have I mentioned these examples in my video? How many times have you found yourself doing this to where you're trying to insert yourself into someone's life and being a better whatever title that you may want to put on it? Long story short, you're trying to change the perspective of how they view you. Whether you're trying to seek approval, whether you're trying to earn a position in their life, whether you're trying to prove your value to them, the list goes on and on and on what I'm talking about. And what I'm talking about is, that's not my job. My job is not to change your perspective of me. That's not my job. I'm well aware of what my job is, and that's not part of it. If I allow that to be part of my job, I'll allow myself to be misused. Because I'll constantly be seeking input from others on how they view me. You're bound to get some malicious intent in there. You're bound to get, oh, well, you know what? Excuse me. I'll just have him running. I'll just have him, because this is working out for me. He's got something to prove. This is how relationships end up one-sided. All types of relationships. I don't care whether you're talking about within the immediate family or distant relatives or relationships, friendships. This is how people put themselves in bad situations. At the workplace, that's another prime example. One of the reasons why, excuse me, this has brought me to this topic of discussion, not only because of something that was brought to me with them talking about in the workplace of what was occurring and what was going on, it made me liken it to some of my past situations that I've thought about, where since I am a person of integrity and I do like to stand by my word, I do like to excuse me, I do like to say what I'm going to do and stick by it. What I mean by say what I'm going to do, I'm not talking about just out here now. I'm going to do this, that, and other. Long story short, I follow my word. Or I try to the best of my ability to keep my word. If it's something I got swirling around in my head, opposed to doing an empty promise, hey, you'll know when I do it when I get there. That's better than me leaving you with false promises or unfulfilled promises or what have you. When you project this up on people, because you got something to prove, or they're combating you with making you feel like you're not coming up to, you're not meeting their standards. Now, this is different from what I'm talking about with constructive criticism. As a matter of fact, I'm going to flesh it out more so going back to this example so you have a real idea of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about from the standpoint where sometimes it makes you question the sanity of the person that you're talking to. Remember, it was a few videos back, at least I hope I published them. It was a few videos back where I stated I was talking to an individual. It was multiple individuals in different situations. I'm not saying multiple, because if it's that many, then there's something wrong with what I'm saying. But I was coming from a positive place. We'll keep it like that. I was coming from a positive place. This person walked away with something I absolutely did not say. And when they walked away with it, I'm like, what? And I let them walk away with it. Now, the old me, I would have steady been trying to explain my position, what it was doing, what my intent was. And I was like, I'm not doing that. This is something I mentioned in another video. I operate as being as transparent as possible. I don't talk to you in riddles. Some people overcomplicate things with their own thought process. Some people won't allow themselves to have good things. That's the reason why they self-sabotage. You can look some of the videos up that I've made in regards to that. Is this really happening to me? It's too good to be true. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. You're the problem. You sat there and you picked it apart. But back to the topic of this video and back to what I'm talking about with this example. When you're constantly clamoring, trying to fight for your position and whatever it may be, it can lead to you being used. And that's not my job to change your perspective on how you view me. I don't have anything to prove. I'll tell you what's my job. My job is in staying in my lane, keeping the things that are in my lane healthy, clean. You know what? I'm kind of like that nitpicky neighbor that really cares about his yard. My yard being my life, the things that are allowed in my yard. I don't want you stomping across my grass with cleats on. I don't want your dog taking a dump on my yard. I don't want your trash blowing over into my yard. Hey, you need to trim them weeds. You got ticks in this stuff. You know, this is getting over here on my, you know, I'm protecting what's mine. I'm staying in my lane. I'm keeping my yard ideal for me, which is healthy. That's my job. I don't care what you do over there. But if it's coming over here in my lane, I'm going to handle it. And I'm going to handle it in a healthy manner. That's what my job is. My job is not to let my neighbor know, hey, you know, you hadn't complimented my yard. Or maybe you don't think my yard is as good as the energy and the actions that I put in the maintenance of keeping my yard, the upkeep of my yard. Maybe you don't think too highly of my yard because you're not taking care of yours. Maybe I'll just try to prove to them on how important it is. You know, that actually didn't come to me until just now. That actually brings me to a real world example. I remember many years ago, I'd gotten a home. And in the home, tending to my yard, it was actually a new subdivision, so everybody, it was new to everybody. And from where I'm from, when it comes to grass, I don't care about grass. My job is to cut it as low as possible. It could look like a baseball field for all I care. And I remember cutting my yard, cutting the grass, and I remember this neighbor who had never said 2 words to me. Now, I don't know how their yard looked because I don't care. But thinking back on this story, I'm sure it probably had to look better than mine because he had the energy and the effort to have his nerve to say something to me. And I remember he crept on over here in the yard, and he brings me this pamphlet. And hey, look, it says right here, to keep your yard, you know, well groomed, the grass needs to be X amount of inches high. You need to do this and this and this, that, and the other. And this was young Ian. I'm looking at him and I'm like, get out my yard. I don't even know you. I just know that you live in this house here behind me. Who are you? I don't care. But the conversation was a lot different. My conversation to him was, okay, I'm from this place. This is how we do yards. He threw his hands up with this pamphlet. It was a little bit more said. He threw his hands up with this pamphlet, and he walked off angry. And it's a lot of things wrong with that story. Number one, this is my yard. Number two, you haven't taken an active interest in me. Who are you, other than the man that lives across the way? Be quiet. I didn't ask you for your opinion. Go back to your own yard. Now, with that real life example of everything that I'm just sitting here talking about, imagine had I been like the topic of this discussion that I brought forth at the beginning of this video. Oh, man. Now, I think that my yard is maintained. The grass is not high. It's not any ticks. It was relatively, in my eyes, ideal to look at. Now imagine if his word carried so much weight to the point I was just like, well, my yard needs to look like his. You know, it was, because the way that the homes were, there was, besides him, there would have been 3 other neighbors because the house was kind of catty-corner with the way that it was. So I would have shared my property lines with 3 other people besides Mr. Courteous over here. So imagine if I started trying to take care of my yard in the way that he saw fit. That would be tiresome. And it's the same way with relationships and the things that you do. We're in our lane, and that's the way that we drive in our life. I am not saying that you can't get constructive criticism. As a matter of fact, it's welcomed. Come to find out a few years later, my yard did die, and it was all sunburnt up, and things ate it up, and had to replant all that grass. Probably some of the hardest work that I'd ever done. Only if I kept that grass a little bit higher, opposed to putting that mower on baseball setting. That's not the point. He still should have stayed over in his yard. By the way, didn't speak to him for another 10 years. He never came over and said anything else. Matter of fact, he put a fence up. But it's still a primary example of the way that people do in your life, that they do when they operate up around you. That's not my job to change your perspective on the way that you are with me. Everybody has their ideal example of how, they operate in life. Now mine, and one of the things that we talk about on this channel, is operating from a healthy standpoint. I do care from the standpoint of what my integrity looks like, my honesty, how I follow through on my word. But one of the things that I'm finding is, I don't care how transparent you are. I don't care how honest you are. I don't care how much you take your best foot forward. You have some people that want to take advantage of that, and they'll leave you toiling and they're unhappy. You'll never prove whatever it is that you're trying to prove to them. But that's beside the point, because it's not your job. And at the end of the day, I don't care. Going back to that example of me talking about with employment, and one of the things that sparked this topic when I said that this family member was talking to me about something that was going on with employment, I'm just like, look, this is not the first time. They know that you work hard. They know that you put your best foot forward. They're toying with you. They think by squeezing and clamping down on you more, it'll make you do more. And this is how you run good people off out of your life. Because you're playing a game. You're not dealing with them earnestly. You're not putting your best foot forward. Excuse me, because if there was something that you would need to talk to them on, or something that you were willing to offer constructive criticism on, then you would say your piece and you would move on. You wouldn't try to tack on to make them feel less than. At the end of the day, and they know who they can pull this on. But at the end of the day, my thought process is, it's not my job to change your perspective on the way that I think. I don't care what you think. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm moving on. I ain't slowing down. I'm not looking back. I'm not seeking your approval. That's the reason why on just about all of these 456 videos that are up here on this channel, that I'm saying, hey, look, I didn't ask you. If I'm asking you on something, completely different situation. But I'm not asking you on the moves that I should be making. If I'm seeking counsel, it'll be clear that I'm talking something out with whomever I'm talking something out with. And that's not just anybody. But at the end of the day, for the close of this video, it's not my job to change your outlook on me. That's something only you could do. Some people have it set in their mind that they're going to view you the way that they view you. And if you're not careful, you can position yourself in their life to be somebody that they can take advantage of. That's it. That's the close of this video. Like I said earlier, check out the links in the description box. I'm Ayin. You stay encouraged, avoid being discouraged. You have a good one.